The following is a Podcast One Minnesota production.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Oh, you betcha, yeah.
If it's made in Minnesota, who's making it and how?
Yeah, you got that right.
It's the Makers of Minnesota, focusing on the products and services uniquely made in Minnesota, and conversations with the makers, entrepreneurs, and innovators in Minnesota about how they conceived of their products and how they brought them to market. With Stephanie Hansen, it's the Makers of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and you are listening to the Makers of Minnesota podcast, where we talk to cool people doing cool things in the state of Minnesota. If you ever know someone or have a story that you think would be good for us to tell, please give us a shout. You can find us on Facebook at Makers of MN, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We are at all of the above, and you can reach me personally at shansen, Hansen, at hbi.com. And I'm really excited today. I'm here with Lee Wallace. Hello, Lee.
Hi, Stephanie.
Lee is the CEO of Peace Coffee, and I have so many questions about coffee, Lee. Number one, I love it, so thank you for having your wonderful coffee company right in our midst. I want to know, okay, because I know that Peace Coffee is better coffee and that it's doing good things for the people and the farmers, but what is fair trade coffee? What does that actually mean?
Good question.
Because I don't think people know.
Right.
They know they're supposed to buy it, but they don't really know.
Right. Well, and I think the coffee industry's come a long way from where it was when I first started. So I started in the coffee industry in 2006. And people, and even when Peace Coffee started back in 1996, nobody was talking about coffee farmers. Nobody knew where coffee came from.
No, we were drinking Folgers out of a can.
Right, chock full of nuts or Maxwell House or whatever. And the only coffee farmer anybody knew about was Juan Valdez, right? The iconic Colombian coffee farmer. And, we've come a long way. And now people are talking about farmers and prices and how much you're paying for coffee. But yeah, I still think it's a really confusing topic for consumers. And it's a complicated topic. But what fair trade is about at its heart is about buying from small-scale coffee farmers. Small-scale coffee farmers produce more than half of the world's coffee. So these are people tending very, very small plots of land.
Which is amazing for the family, but probably hard to create a growing concern off of all these individual people on these small plots of land.
Exactly. So it's really hard to get enough coffee to actually sell in a meaningful quantity to a buyer.
Yep.
So if you have a very small farm and shipping containers hold 40,000 pounds of coffee, well, it's going to take the combined production of a lot of these farms to satisfy the buying needs of someone like Peace Coffee.
Sure.
So what we're trying to do is we're working on a solution for a problem that's pretty big, right? We're trying to provide a better standard of living for these small-scale coffee farmers. Then there's some other details. There's things like price. There's a minimum price that we pay for our coffee because we recognize Minnesota's a farm state. People here know a lot about farming.
Yep.
If you're a farmer, you can't sell your coffee or your beets or your potatoes for less than it costs you to actually grow that product. So fair trade takes that into consideration. And then in addition, we're working on the ground in coffee growing communities, and that's a really strong part of Peace Coffee's model, to really understand how we can participate in helping to improve things in the communities themselves, or more accurately, how to empower the community to actually make the changes that they want to make to improve the quality of life for everybody.
So I have this really naive utopian in my mind where it's all these beautiful families and their multi-generational plantations of coffee that aren't super large scale, but they've been doing this for some time and maybe their neighbors are doing it. How do you literally go and meet these individual people? Are there regions that you say, hey, we're going to buy from this region, and they collectively get together and put their products together? So
a really key part to fair trade is that we're working with cooperatives. So the farmers come together and basically form an association. The farmers get a vote. They're members of these co-ops.
Okay.
And so we're buying from those co-ops. And those co-ops are very sophisticated businesses in and of themselves.
Like they have for cheese and dairy,
Exactly.
and there's co-ops for
Right.
all sorts of grain products.
Yep.
And,
Yes, it's very similar to that model. So the farmers are delivering their products to the co-op. The co-op is then marketing that product to coffee buyers like Peace Coffee. And then we're in constant communication with that co-op about how the crop's going, how the year looks, when they'll be shipping coffee, things like that. So this is a very really big, sophisticated international business.
Okay, so let's go back to the original. So I realize that you personally did not start Peace Coffee, but did it originally start in someone's basement as sort of a project at a nonprofit?
Yes, that is a true story.
So tell me about that.
So the nonprofit is called the Institute for Agriculture and Trade Policy. I'm going to shorten that and call it IATP from now on.
Okay.
But that's a Minneapolis-based nonprofit, and they were formed out of the family farm crisis that happened in the upper Midwest in the mid-'80s. And as they moved on and they continued on with their work, they expanded their mission to include farmers around the world.
Yeah, because they probably did what they needed to do in the 80s. Farmers got on a better footing, and they were probably looking for more customers.
They were looking for other ways that they could start to think about how to influence policy to make things
Sure.
better for farmers. So in the 90s, they were talking to coffee farmers from Mexico and saying, what can we do? How can we help you with policy? And the farmers kept saying, policy's so abstract when you need to figure out how to feed your family or send your kids to school. So what we really need is markets. And Peace Coffee was really born out of that conversation around nobody thinks about who grows coffee. Nobody thinks about how much they're getting paid. Let's bring some coffee in and begin this conversation with consumers around, hey, do you know where this product came from? And we were one of the first companies in the United States to do that.
That's why I'm interested in you, and that's why you're here today, because I do think that was a really unique business model, and it did start here. And was it just, obviously people interested in being able to create a sustainable product? What was it about coffee and this market that made that go?
Yeah. Well, I think it was just happenstance that they brought coffee in, right? That's that. I know. I think people think that that's not a very inspiring business story, but a lot of times that's how businesses get started.
It's luck.
Yeah, it is.
Being in the right place at the right time.
It's in being in the right place at the right time and having the right idea and managing to put it all together and then managing to hold it together, right? But yeah, it was just this one conversation that happened with these coffee farmers, and they said, okay, we're going to start with coffee. And originally they didn't even know they were going to end with coffee. They thought, we'll try it with coffee. Maybe we'll move on to other products.
Yeah.
That never happened. What they ended up doing was accidentally starting this consumer brand that really took off. And the vision always was, how can we begin to elevate the profile of people who are working in these other countries around the world that people don't think about? Now, why did it work? Why did it take off?
Yeah, who was there? Just a talented group of individuals that sold it and bought into it and made it happen?
Yeah. Well, I think it's a combination of things. There's always been really great people who worked at Peace Coffee. Mm-hmm. When you have a mission and a purpose and a sense of excitement for the results of your work, that really shows in terms of how people lean into the work that they're doing and how people dedicate themselves. So always been lucky, and I think the company's always been lucky to just have incredibly passionate, talented people working and willing to contribute all of their best efforts. I also think it's this place. I think there's something about Minnesota, and there's something about our food co-ops in this state and in the upper Midwest. So, when we were first doing this, one of the really early parts of our model was we delivered the coffee by bicycle, right? And that's still going strong. We're still delivering almost.
I was going to ask you about that in a little bit.
Yeah, that we're still doing that. And that was mainly because we didn't have any money to buy a van. And there were a group of employees who were dedicated cyclists, and people just started doing bike delivery. And, a lot of conventional grocery stores at the time never would have had a bike delivery person show up to stock their shelves.
And it probably was just different enough that it created intrigue. We're lucky to have such a robust co-op community.
Yeah.
And I don't know, if you came and knocked on my door and someone was delivering coffee by bike and I was a co-op, I think I'd stock you.
Yeah, absolutely. The co-ops were our first, customers that really embraced us. And then it's just kind of grown from there. But I think, that is such an asset to food entrepreneurs in this community, those food co-ops. And frankly, now a lot of the specialty grocers too are really good at looking for local products and bringing them in. But we were lucky that way.
So one of the original models I read was pedal, not petrol.
Yes.
Obviously, you guys have expanded and grown, and you're all over the country now in terms of people's ability to buy coffee.
Yep.
And so you have when you had to make that shift to the biodiesel van, I bet that was like, wow, we can't just get any old truck here to start delivering.
Right.
We have to deliver on this model.
Right. Yeah, we did. We were very dedicated to biodiesel.
Did you have to get like one of those Willie Nelson vans that are like powered by corn oil from a McDonald's factory? Do you know about that?
Yeah, well, there was a period of time where there was a biodiesel shed and people had a biodiesel project.
Yep.
And then there was, luckily, biodiesel became available in gas stations and more readily available to us. But yes, that first van was a diesel van and people were really excited to power it with biodiesel. And it was just part of how you continue to participate in conversations around what is the world we all want to see and how are we participating, kind of staying on the leading edge of as a socially responsible company.
I have to ask you, because this all, like in theory, sounds really good.
Yeah.
And you guys have been very successful with it. But at the end of the day, sometimes, the consumer's standing there and they're going to make a price decision based on how much it costs. You're in a very competitive environment. We have Caribou Coffee right here. We've got Starbucks, obviously, that took the world by storm. Yet you still are growing this company and able to do it. And in fact, you purchased the company yourself.
I did, yeah.
So that happened. Was it this year that you purchased?
It was a month, like literally May 1st.
Okay.
So,
wow.
yeah,
I'm so on it.
Yeah, a month ago. Mm-hmm.
I can say like I was one of the first people to talk to you about purchasing the company. In light of all those obstacles, what is it that made you decide like, wow, I've been here since 2006. This is a place I want to put my future in?
Yeah. I have always loved how complicated what we do is. If we were selling something that wasn't as complicated, I think I would have gotten bored.
What were you like what were you like in high school and in college? Were you kind of an accounting nerd, or what was your...
No. Oh my goodness. People always say, how did I end up here? And that, I was an anthropology major.
Wow.
And I thought I was going to be a documentary filmmaker.
Okay.
But I've always been interested in thinking
story.
Globally and what's the story and thinking about cultures and thinking about all that stuff. And then I actually have a master's degree in public policy. I don't have a master's degree in business. And that's because I was always really interested in where mission and money meet. So that's how I got to where I am today. I was always interested in how you can combine business and mission, make money, but do the right thing. And like Peace Coffee, I was kind of ahead of my time. Nobody was talking about that when I went and got my master's degree. So I got told I wasn't a business student and told I was a public policy student. So I went to public policy school and then just kept finding different jobs where I got to combine these two passions. And I was working for myself when I originally got approached by IATP, the then owners of Peace Coffee. And they said, will you come and help us? We own this company. We need someone to kind of go in and do an assessment and help us understand. It was very small at the time, why we own it and what we should do with it was basically the assignment. So, I was always interested in and concerned with having a career where I really felt like I was leaving a mark and doing a good thing. And that just, I loved that about Peace Coffee from day one.
It seems like you're the perfect person. Like it just hits on all of the cylinders of things that are important to you. And as we've matured in our wanting to do work that does good and feels good and is good, people have started to do these B Corps.
Yeah.
And you guys are a B Corp, right? And for our listeners that don't know what that means, could you explain?
Sure. Yes. And this is something I'm really excited about for the future. I think it's a really good tool for consumers. People ask me all the time, oh, there's all these certifications. How do I sort it out? There's, handshake coffee and partnership coffee. I mean, I'm making these names up, but there's all these different, just the proliferation of certifications has become problematic for consumers.
Yeah, and in the whole organic and natural. And
how do you sort all this out? Well, B Corporation movement is a movement of businesses that are focused on using their business as a force for good. It's a really high bar certification, and it looks at absolutely every aspect of your business. So it looks at your value chain and how you're operating in other countries, if you're sourcing products from other countries, or how you're buying things from vendors and which vendors you prioritize, all the way through to your operations. So the environmental impact of our coffee roasting facility, what we're doing, how we're measuring our environmental footprint, and then all the way to how do you treat your employees and your customers.
It does look at that. Oh, that's
so
interesting.
It's absolutely the entire scope of your business. And then you take the assessment. You have to hit a minimum score to get be able to use the logo and get the certification.
Yep.
And then you have to retake the assessment every 2 years, but they raise the bar on you. So they force you to continue to make improvement in your operations.
You can't just keep
you can't just
at
coast.
Your status
no,
quo.
You can't just coast. And it's wonderful as an entrepreneur and now business owner to have this tool, because the tool actually helps you prioritize where you're going to make improvements. So you can look at the tool and you can say, well, I scored 0 here, but it's a really great idea. One example would be we're moving to way more financial transparency with our staff. So we're going to
which is really interesting.
Right.
Actually.
And that was something we weren't doing very well. And it was kind of always on the list. And it helped me understand how important that is. So we're switching over and providing a lot more financial information to everybody who works for the company. That's a big project and it's going to take some time.
And the benefit of that would be what in your estimation?
The benefit of that would be that they really understand the business more. I mean, people are really attached to our mission. People are really attached to the impact that we have. And we frequently would only talk about, we bought this number of pounds of coffee from coffee farmers. But I really want them to understand how we're reinvesting in the business, how much money we make, the financial impact of various decisions. I just think it will help our employees feel even more invested and involved in the company.
I think so. And it's funny. I ran a company, and for a long time, we didn't share information, and we felt like maybe it was, I don't know, greedy to say how much money you were making, but then we missed the whole part of, well, then how do we reinvest, and how do we have healthcare benefits, and what kind of things are we doing in return? And when we got more into full disclosure, it seemed just like everybody valued, when they were going to throw away that piece of paper instead of writing on the back and reusing it, like dumb stuff like that, or how they were going to ship something instead of just like, oh, we're just going to send this first class. They might think, well, maybe standard class would be more efficient. And they just seemed like they cared more in the overall investment of what we were putting back into the business. All of us, time, sweat, equity, money, the whole thing.
Yeah. And I think, when you asked me earlier about why in such a competitive landscape I'd be interested in buying Peace Coffee and attaching my future to this company. And a lot of it is that I really believe in the model that we started, and I believe in carrying this work forward. And I'm not scared by competition. Everybody has competition.
Yep.
And open book management goes to that in a way, because, the thing is, if I sit around and think about it, I've got 60 staff members who are giving me such a huge part of their life.
Yep.
Right? They're working 20, 30, 40 hours a week, 50, 60 hours a week. And, if I'm going to take that seriously and honor their time, they deserve information about the business, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's just, in my mind, respect and honoring their commitment.
When you talk about growth, like I was noticing, I read an article, I think, that said that you guys have grown 10% every year. And that seems pretty conservative and consistent and doable, I guess. What is the decision that has happened that has made you go into actual retail locations? Because that seems a little bit of a different business model.
Sure. No, it's a totally different business.
Yeah. And is that something
Yep.
you're excited about, or like, oh, this feels like right about where we're at?
Yeah. Yep. It's really interesting because that 10% number that we use all the time, and this is the way we think, 10% is how much more coffee we sell every year. It's not necessarily revenue growth or profitability or anything like that. And that's just like because we're so focused on the farmers.
Yeah.
We're so focused on the more coffee we buy, the more coffee these farmers are able to sell to us. And
Therefore,
that's a good thing. Therefore, we're successful. Yeah.
You could be managing other ends of that business in a not successful way.
Right. Yeah. Yep. I mean, we are consistently profitable. The retail location decision was really because we're such an old company. So anytime a brand has been around for, in our case, it's over 20 years, at some point in time, you have to kind of look at where the industry is going and adapt to stay current. And what we wanted to do, the reason why we went into retail is for a few different reasons. Number one, us being operator of retail coffee shops makes us a better wholesale partner for the coffee shops that we service. So now we really intimately understand that business. We're able to train people's baristas. We're able to help them think through drink menus. We're able to help them think through flow when their baristas are working behind the bar. So it's made us a really great provider. We teach classes. We'll go on site and we'll work directly in other people's coffee shops. So that was one reason. The other reason was to get the expertise and understand how to best brew and prepare our coffee. So it's really just enhanced our ability to be a wholesaler because we now have this retail business that we're able to learn from.
And it's sort of like a lot of people sit in here and they start out at farmers markets and they work them themselves because they get feedback right from the customers firsthand.
Yes, absolutely. So now we're placing those drinks in customers' hands. We're able to understand what people like to drink.
Yep.
We're able to understand, overall the specialty coffee experience in a way that we just weren't able to understand it before. And it helps us really say, we're a Minnesota company. We're a Minneapolis company.
Yep.
That's why we have retail locations here. Our vision for growth is not to open retail locations in Chicago or anything like that.
They're almost like labs.
Yeah. They are like labs.
Yeah, I love that idea.
Yeah, and they're community building spaces for us. We are a very community-minded company, and we love creating community. So it's also a way for us to extend that joy and that love of that into neighborhoods. You guys have
a community room off of the Minnehaha location where people can rent it for like book clubs and that sort of thing.
Yep.
When you look at retail, do you think, would you ever open a place in St. Paul, or is it like we've got our labs, we're getting the information that we need?
Oh, no, I think we will continue to open a small number of additional coffee shops. There's, you have these things that are always on your list when you're running a business, got to get to that.
Yep.
And one of them is really, what is our retail strategy? It's always in the kind of, let's look at that pile of things. So we don't have a strategy right now, but
it's such a thoughtfully designed store and brand, and really I feel like helped me as a Peace Coffee consumer get more invested in the lifestyle of your company and your brand. Until you sat here, it never really occurred to me that in some ways it's a giant marketing opportunity too.
Oh,
or marketing expense, as it were.
It's a way for us to introduce people to our brand in a different way.
Yep.
That's the reason why we have a coffee shop downtown in Capella Tower. We have two. We have a ground floor and a skyway level. And it's really an opportunity for us just to get people to encounter our brand in new and different ways.
Are you excited at all about coffee trucks or the mobile movement of coffee?
I think that's really exciting. And again, it's another way to get our brand in front of people, right? Another way to have people say, oh, and for so many years, our strategy, we were a grassroots marketing company. Mm-hmm. So for so many years, our strategy was just get in front of people and give them a coffee, get them to taste it and start talking to them about it. Mobile provides us with an opportunity to sell our coffee at events and things like that. We had the opportunity to do a pop-up and sell coffee when the Ryder Cup was in town. And that was really great for us, just getting to be out there and talking to different people. But yeah, as a food entrepreneur, the more people that you and your staff can talk to and learn from and expose to your brand, the better.
Okay, so I have to ask, you've bought this company, you have this mission, you're obviously looking towards improving your company and creating more economies of scale and doing good. Can you take this same thing and maybe can you do it with pastries or Pop-Tarts or whatever the product might be that you could bring into the coffee shop environment and replicate? Even just catering maybe, or
yeah. We always think about are we, going to continue to grow our wholesale business and focus on new markets? Are we going to grow our retail business? Are we going to diversify into other products? I mean, there's other companies and the farmers that we work with grow other products.
I noticed on the website you have a lot of recipes actually for coffee, which I appreciate. And you do classes, which that sounds really dumb to take a class on how to make coffee.
It's not dumb at all.
Yeah, you guys have a great class. Yeah. And I think it was $25. It's a really low price point. At least it was when we talked about it on our radio show a couple weeks ago or a couple years ago. Tea seems to be an area that could be sort of in this same philosophy.
Yeah. Yep. There's tea. Farmers that we work with have some amazing chocolate products.
I thought about that too. Yeah.
There's tea that's generally grown in other parts of the world, but we see a lot of honey coming out of areas where coffee's grown. And there's nuts. There are other products that we could get into. It's, most likely it would be something like a cocoa or something like that, because there is some really good chocolate being grown. I'm going to Peru in a few weeks and going to be visiting with a co-op that has an amazing chocolate product that they're selling, and an amazing cocoa that they're selling as well.
So that's one of the downsides of your job. You have to go to all these gloriously lovely farms in third world countries that are beautiful and...
Yeah. This community in particular is beautiful. It's in the Amazon rainforest basin, so I have to cross the Andes, and then you get to this community that is very remote, and also just like stunningly beautiful. I will tell you, and this will make everyone think that I have the job that they all want.
Sure.
But I did actually get to ride a motorcycle through pineapple fields as the sun set in the Amazon rainforest basin on one of these trips. So, by myself.
Wow.
So, yes.
What is that movie this Motorcycle Diaries. Have you ever seen that movie?
I haven't seen it.
Okay, people, this is like, it's the love story. It's of Che Guevara and how he learned about socialism and what became important to him. And they end up riding motorcycle through South America, and then they end up in a leper colony, and they're young, just very hopeful men, and this tour changes them, and it sets the course for his political future. Yeah. It's just a beautiful movie, and it reminds me of that story.
Yeah, it was a cool moment for me. And it's one thing that I really love about my job is, now that I've been doing this for 12 years, I mean, these folks are friends of mine, right? You don't do business with somebody for 12 years and not learn about their families and go into their homes and get to share food with them and have them, expose you to all kinds of different things. And then, of course, people come here and visit us, and, we see people at conferences and things like that. So it is a really cool thing to get to see all these communities and know all these people. And there's things about it that are stunningly beautiful. And there's things about it where you just realize, wow, these people, are still really struggling. And there's a very harsh reality to it as well.
Yeah. And I guess that just seems like most people don't get the glimpse of what it's like to really make an impact in someone's daily living and their livelihood and their life skills and their future prospects. I mean, you really get to see that what you purchase and what you resell makes a huge difference in someone's family. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, I have a really, really clear story that shows just the trajectory. Mm-hmm. So the first time I went to Guatemala with Peace Coffee was in 2008. And the really exciting thing that the community had to show me was that they had gotten electricity up to where the offices were. And so there was this single light bulb and this electric roaster that they were able to show me. Fast forward to this year, and the woman who buys all of our green coffee just went down there, and they have greenhouses, and they're testing different varietals, and they're having coffee buyers come down and taste all these different varietals because they're trying to figure out, with a change in climate change, which varietals they're going to need to plant moving forward and how they taste. Now, you say, okay, over a decade, this community went from we got electricity to we're a complicated agribusiness, right? We're running a complicated business, and we're breeding varietals and doing trials and research, and that is just a huge sign of progress.
And that's an amazing story. And I don't know if it gets much better than that, Lee. So we're going to end on that story. Peace Coffee, buy it. You can find it all over. You can find it in beans. You can find it at the retail locations, both in beans and also as a grab-and-go cup of coffee. And a lot of the stores have pump containers, so you can help yourself that way too. And just know that when you're purchasing Peace Coffee, that you're doing something more than just drinking a cup of coffee. You're helping someone out. What a great story. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you so much.